So, you want to be a contractor. Ever wonder what it takes to become a contractor? The journey they go on to get where they are now, or the crazy things they see and hear on the job site? Well, you're in the right spot. Welcome to So You Want to Be a Contractor, the podcast. Join your host, Mike Fisher, as he talks to owners of construction companies from all over about how they got started, how they run their business, and some of the craziest stories they've experienced on their job sites. And now, your host, Mike Fisher.
Welcome to So You Want to Be a Contractor. This is episode number 29. My name is Mike Fisher. Guest today, Alex Rodriguez. Not the Alex Rodriguez, the more famous and harder working Alex Rodriguez in my book. CEO at Bay Cities Construction. How you doing, Alex?
Thanks for having me. Well, I'm actually the original Alex Rodriguez. If you want to be technical about it, I'm a little bit older than him, so he's riding my coattails.
Right. I love that. Perfect. So, for those of you that maybe didn't catch my first series under a different name that I don't know if I'm allowed to say or not, but Alex is actually a return guest. So these are always fun for me because I get to hear all the updates and see how things have grown and how you guys have changed over a couple of years. So let's get into your story first. How did you get into this industry and what was that road like to where you are now today?
Right on. Well, we got incorporated in 2004, so we're celebrating our 18th year anniversary.
I saw that. Yeah, you had that cake and everything. It was awesome.
Yeah, so
congrats.
I'm one of those people that was too dumb to know that it was a bad idea to start a company during the middle of the Great Recession.
Right.
So we started 2004, so a little bit before the Great Recession, and what we did as a business, our business model was to flip houses. I had a partner, and he was my financial partner. I did all of the construction work, and he provided the funding and financing. So we did that for about 4 years. Like I said, we incorporated in 2004, and then the crash hit in 2008. So it was 4 years later, and pretty much that was, flipping was over for at least the next 24 months. So we started doing, we started providing construction services for homeowners, right? Kind of a retail business, what we would call a retail business, and it was really hard, really rough. We didn't have a brand. Most of all of the business that we did was in real estate, so we didn't have a retail presence. We didn't have a website, none of those things. It was very difficult to find customers. So I decided that while I was still, trying to figure out how we were going to keep this business going, I enrolled at Mount St. Mary's college here in California, in Los Angeles, and I enrolled in their business program. And one of the first classes that I took was this online marketing class.
I love these online, right?
Online, yeah. Well, that was before it was obvious.
Back then, it wasn't
obvious what it was going to be. So one of our case study cases was this company called Hubspot, which is a software application that we still use today.
Yep.
And it helps you manage your website and update your website and keep things current on the website versus hiring, an outside IT department to keep things updated. So anyway, long story short, after that semester ended, one of my presentations in the class was this company HubSpot and what they can do for businesses, and they were struggling in the beginning to get new customers. And one of my solutions for them was to create an online learning center where the businesses could learn how to market online and how to create content online. And it wasn't because of anything that I said, but they ended up actually doing that as a module in the software. So we started using that. And at the time, my daughter Lydia was working with us, and she took the classes, and I watched the videos and stuff online too. And before you knew it, we were starting, we opened up an account with them, and we were one of the first 1,000 customers that they had. I mean, I think they've got probably like 20, 30,000 customers or something like that now.
Right.
But anyhow, that's kind of a long story, but that's initially how I started, how I changed gears, started the rebranding, started the relaunch, and started to create content that was relevant to our potential customers.
So you've been in the content creation and that part of it from a marketing and branding standpoint for a long time then, right? Like when
Yeah,
I mean
yeah, we have.
before it was kind of necessary, right? Now it's if you've got like you call it a retail construction company or somebody that is geared towards or targeting, homeowners, it's almost a mandatory at this point to be any sort of successful.
Well, you have to. I would agree with that statement. Yes. So you have to commit to creating the content. If not, you're going to just spend a lot of money in marketing, and it's going to be when you send out a piece of marketing material or advertising material, like a flyer or a door hanger. That's a lot of the things that are done
Right.
in this. Sorry, a lot of these types of tactics involve a very cold piece of touch point to the customer from the company,
Yep.
right? So when you send out a flyer, it doesn't mean anything to anybody. When you do a radio ad, maybe for the first few months, it doesn't mean anything to the potential buyers. They don't know you. You haven't given them anything of any. You haven't exchanged anything of value other than saying, "Hey, I exist. Hey, I exist."
Yep.
So when you create content, it's an investment into and it's an invitation for an exchange, right? I'm exchange as the subject matter expert. I'm exchanging some of the information that I know about this potential project that you have. In your case, it's the problem that you want to solve, right? And I am offering you that in exchange for your attention. That's the exchange. If you don't have that, then you're not going to be very successful at it because otherwise you're just an interruption. It becomes like the flyer or the phone or
Right.
the cold call phone
Right.
call. It becomes an interruption in their day. You're not offering a quality value for value exchange.
Well, and in most cases, that cold approach, really all you're trying to uh, the most successful you can be is if you catch somebody on a good day, right? Who they see your flyer and they were actually in the middle of talking about doing a project at their home, right? I mean, that's the only time that really works, right? It's rare that somebody gets that flyer and thinks, "Huh, what can I fix up around here because these look like great people that I want to do business with," right? Whereas the content part, like you said, you're giving them value, you're creating a memory, and then when those points in their life come up where they want to do those renovation jobs, you've got them, you've got those memories in there with them that they can fall back on.
So yeah, yes. So there's a few pieces of dynamic engagement. So there's the part where you're creating awareness, right? Where somebody is associating my name, Bay Cities Construction, with residential remodeling services, right? There's that, which is what you're describing.
Yep.
But the more the more immediate buyer or potential buyer would be the person that's actually researching a particular task. So if somebody's interested in a open kitchen concept, for example, they're going to be researching how much does it cost to remove a load bearing wall, what are good large island ideas, etc. Right? They're going to be
Yep.
they're going to be trying to understand the totality of getting that open kitchen concept done. So that is where a contractor would be creating valuable information at that point. And that's where you would be getting invited, instead of interrupting, you would be getting invited to participate in the person's thought process for making a decision on how much to spend, how big of a project is going to be, and who's going to get hired ultimately.
Yeah.
So it's a very big difference in how the contractor gets embedded into the process. Do you want, I guess you'd ask yourself, if you only create cold touch points, i.e. radio ads and flyers and things of that nature, or maybe even ads in the local newspaper. And I wouldn't say that you shouldn't do that. I'm just saying that it's going to create a different kind of a lead. You're going to
Right.
get invited as the contractor to participate in a bidding war for who's going to be cheapest for that project. That's the that's the context of the invitation that the customer is going to give you to participate. Whereas if you traded valuable information with them, you're going to be invited to come in and give them more information in a respected way, not in a dismissive way that leads to the lowest price possible. Now, that doesn't mean to say that some people won't call you comparing prices and stuff like that. But what I'm going to tell you is that the quality of the lead and the mindset and the perception that the customer has for you is going to be very different if they come in based on a piece of valuable content that you created.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, and that's the key there is what you said, the quality of the lead, right? I mean, there's a million ways to skin the cat and get leads, but at the end of the day, you want the ones with the high close ratio that trust you, right? And those ones that you described that are reaching out to you based on something that they've seen. You've got that first layer of trust already built into that relationship.
Yeah, it's a much better starting point than just coming in cold. You know, I don't know, maybe things will change as our economy cools down and the totality of work or the demand for construction work cools down. But if we were to just run around town doing free estimates all day, I wouldn't get anything done.
Right.
There's a lot of demand for pricing, and there just isn't enough time in the day to do all of it for
Right.
free. So how do you, as a company, try and filter through the people that are more committed and more likely to do business with you? And this is one of the ways, by giving them the opportunity to to know you better, and for them to determine if they want to seriously consider you for the project. Um, I can't honestly tell you that the close ratios are one way or another, but I would say that this approach allows the contractor the opportunity to also get to know the person better before you commit to them. Because if you're doing small projects that are a couple of days long, it doesn't really matter. But if you're doing something that's a few months long, you definitely want to make sure that you're a good fit with the customer, so that
Yeah.
you don't get dragged into some nightmare job, or like the
Yeah, and
customers you.
there's a level of control too, right? That in the balance of control in those relationships, depending on how they're started and the foundation that they're built on, right? I mean, if you have to get into a bidding war with four other contractors and cut everything thin to win this job and beg and do whatever you got to do to get this job, and then you finally win it, you're at the mercy of that homeowner, right? I mean, they've got if you've got a control balance scale, they're pretty heavily in control there in that situation. Whereas, coming in the other way, there's a little bit like you said, I get to know you, you get to know me. Let's balance this level of control and work together through this project.
I think that that's definitely true. Um, and really the part that I fear is the occasional person that would abuse that kind of power.
Yep.
So I remember during the recession, probably 3-4 months in, it was dead. We had maybe 2-3 leads a month. So I had to close one a month
Yeah.
to keep things going. And I remember going to this lady's house in a more affluent area in Los Angeles, and she told me flat out, she was a physician and she was a psychologist, I think, and her husband was a doctor or something like that. They had plenty of money to do the job. They were considering doing 2 bathroom remodels. And she told me in no uncertain terms, she's like, look, I understand what you're asking for these bathrooms, but honestly, I think that under the current condition of construction, I could get both bathrooms done for that price. So she wanted me to do both bathrooms for the price of one, right? And I at first I was kind of taken back by that comment, right? And I was thinking to myself, man, this lady has no problem with me working for free for a couple of months on her job at my expense. And somehow that's supposed to be like um something I'm gonna do.
Yeah, yeah,
So
accepted. Yeah,
yeah. Like you're gonna take what I'm gonna pay you, and that's what you're gonna take, and that's it,
right,
right?
right.
Well, I had made before that, luckily, before that encounter, I had made a decision as things got bad. I said to myself, hey, look, if we're not gonna make money, if we're not gonna be profitable, I might as well just stay home because I'm not gonna move around heavy things all day for free. I'm not going to drive around town. I'm not going to go pick up stuff. I'm not going to go deliver it. And at the end of the week, have nothing to show for it. I'd rather just stay home. I mean, honestly, it would just cost me less money to
Right.
to not do the job. And then
And
this is a true
stress and
statement in
time.
construction.
Yeah,
This is a true statement in construction. Sometimes guys think that they're going to make it up on volume. Well, if you take on jobs at losses, the more you do, the more you lose.
right. Right.
So, and breaking
It's gonna
even
catch
is
up to you eventually, right?
no,
Yeah,
no, 100%.
yeah,
Breaking even is not making money. Breaking even is breaking even, and it potentially puts you in a position for a loss. So anyway, I told her very nicely. I kind of cracked a smile. I said, "Well, thank you for considering me, and this is definitely I'm not interested in doing two jobs for the price of one." I says these are bathroom models. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take people to dedicate themselves and be here every day and get the job done. And there's no way that I could do that for half the price. Basically it's 2 for 1, half the price. So, and then I excused myself and I left. And I thought to myself, I bet you that there's going to be a contractor
oh,
that's
for
going to be
sure.
desperate enough that'll take that.
Yep.
So, so to your point, to the point that we're discussing, you don't want the balance of power to be like that either. Like
Yep.
that, that's not good. Everybody in this business is worth their time is worth something, their knowledge is worth something, and it doesn't make any sense, particularly some of the more affluent people, to do work for them for free. My old cabinet maker, he says, hey Alex, I don't need these jobs for practice. I've been doing this for 25 30 years. We're all good. We need to do these jobs for money.
Right. Right.
And that's a true statement.
Yeah, no, I actually use that all the time. In my line of work on the insurance side, right? I mean, when people call me and just say, "Hey, can you take a look at this?" Well, what's the situation, right? Because I don't need to quote insurance for practice. Like I'm pretty damn good at it, and I know what I'm
Right.
doing. So if there's an opportunity for us to work together, I'm happy to help you out. But if you're looking for a quote, just a quote. I don't need the practice, but thanks. Yeah, I completely understand that
And
sentiment.
it's amazing how if you allow people, they will waste your time. Like you'll waste your entire day and not think bad about it because
Yeah,
I think as salespeople over the years, we've trained people to behave like that with us, right? To disrespect, that it's okay to be disrespectful, it's okay for to blow me off, those types of things, and it's just not okay.
right.
I think when you're younger in any business, you put up with a lot more crap than you would, if you were a little bit more seasoned.
Well, it's part of that
And
learning curve. I feel like it's something that you have to go through, right? You have
yeah,
to experience that part of it before you can appreciate and learn how to, move on into the more sophisticated part of it.
well, that's true, and I think a part of it is that you get in a position in your career where you do have information that is of value,
Right,
where your time is valuable, where
right.
your advice is valuable and and respected. And when you come across people that don't value it, you just don't give them any of your time.
Yep,
That's the trade-off, right? So we're we're trading our time for other people's attention, and it's our responsibility as the business owners to provide the content and the information that other people find valuable. I mean,
yep,
that's true also. You can't come and just waste other people's time and interrupt them with stuff that has no value to them. So it definitely cuts both ways. But once you do realize that you have good information, valuable information, and you do know how to help people in your respective field, then you have to. I think it's important that you make it understood. What are the parameters for engaging with you?
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned the value of time too, because I remember vividly being in insurance eons ago for the first time in sales, and I had a broker come to me. We were talking about a deal that I got connected with, and literally this was months into me doing this, and I had no prior experience or anything. And the guy says, looks at me, looks at the carrier, looks at the situation, he goes, "Walk away. It's not good." So what are you talking about? This is pretty good revenue here. He said, "Yeah, but you'll lose because of this, this, and this, and it's just not worth your time." I said, "Well, I got nothing else going on." He goes, "I would never do it." He goes, "My time's too valuable." I said, "Yeah, but you've got a book of business that's this big, and I'm brand new in this industry, right? Like I've got literally no value to my time right now. Like
Right.
I might as well." And to your point, that's when you learn some of those things, right? You learn some of that knowledge and some of those things that you can turn around later in your career and use to present value and knowledge to the rest of the industry for sure.
It's particularly hard in my industry because guys are so willing to hop in their truck and run 40 miles to the other side of the town to talk to somebody for 10 minutes, and then they don't even show up. They end up driving over there, and
At $6 a
prop
gallon,
the property manager or the property owner
right?
didn't open the door or whatever. So it's a very, I would think that my industry, the construction industry, would wisen up a little bit. And I think there's plenty of companies that are more established and maybe run their company a little bit different, but there's always newcomers that are, willing to continue the insanity. What I call
Well,
the
unfortunate.
insanity.
I mean, for them, I mean, fortunate for the industry, and maybe unfortunate for some of those that are a little bit newer and not as wise, maybe. With as things tighten up here, right? If the economy goes at everybody the way everybody says it's going to go, and things tighten up a little bit, I think a lot of those guys end up going away, right? You're not going to be able to survive. So, um, it might be a situation where the economy and the industry kind of take care of itself as far as um, you know who's going to be in it still in the next 3 to 5 years.
Well, I think that there's a lot of truth to that. I would say that one of the biggest, if you look at an economic downturn as an external threat that you don't have any power over, right? We don't have any power to stimulate the economy and get people to spend and any of those things. So we have to view this as an external threat. Um, the only way to try and mitigate or defend against a downward economy is really leaning on the years of experience and the brand that you've created during the good times.
Yep.
And hopefully people did that. I would say that if you didn't spend any money on branding yourself and getting people to know you and developing a network, then you're susceptible to that. You're susceptible to bankruptcy, because you can't maintain a company by yourself. If you got on the truck and went to the job site and quoted the job and did the job, and maybe you've got a couple helpers and stuff, and that was the extent of what you grew your business to, you're going to be very susceptible to the downturn, because you're not going to be able to have enough money to create the marketing messages and the advertising messages that are going to be necessary, especially in months that you're running red, you're running red, you're running red. So you need a surplus of money. You need a significant amount of a campaign, because good years, bad years, good quarters, bad quarters, people still need work. They still need, in all industries, right? I mean, people
Yeah.
are still going to go to restaurants. The question is, which restaurant are you going to go to? They're still going to buy cars. The question is, which dealership are they going to go to? They're going to buy insurance. The question is, which brokerage are you going to go to? So that's going to be, that's a truism, right? Regardless of what the condition of the economy is. So the question that I ask myself, the question that keeps me up at night is, did I do enough? And I don't know that you ever get to the point where you're like, yeah, I did enough. I think that it's very healthy to be skeptical and unsure about that and continue to push through and create more content and spend the money, invest. I would say not spend the money, invest the money in your content creation, particularly content that would be evergreen, right? If I just do Google AdWords, once the money's gone, the AdWords are dead. But if I create
Right.
blog articles and I'm on different podcasts and I go to luncheons with realtors and network with them, I'm broadening the way that my leads would come in. What are the different channels that my leads would come in, right? Some of them are going to be referrals from old customers. Some of them are going to be referrals from real estate agents and other professionals in my industry. And then others will be through my website and through, podcasts like this, etc. But if you're not doing that, if you're not thinking about your business in that way, I think you're gonna be in trouble.
Yeah. No, undoubtedly, unfortunately, but yeah, I agree. So, talk a little bit about the deliberate strategy and in how you guys do what you do as far as branding or content creation or some of those things. Like how was that developed and what does it look like today?
Well, it started off very crudely, as you can see some of the original videos, just of me shooting at these jobs, and they're in many ways they were just very unfocused. Where now we're creating the content that we're creating is much more focused, and it's centered around a lot of the keyword phrases that people use to try and research different aspects of construction. So I
Yep.
used, the open kitchen floor plan because that happens to be a significant part of the discussion when people are talking about doing a kitchen remodel. Are you gonna remove walls, you're gonna make it bigger, that type of stuff. And then so there's those types of videos that people would use as they research their topic, or we've done videos on like what are the trends, the design trends for 2022. Those are more of the popular videos that get a lot of, get good traction compared to other titles that we give
Yep.
the videos. And then there's the types of videos that we've created about new things that we've done. Like I think the year before last, we did a project where we insulated a vaulted ceiling from the outside. Most vaulted ceilings, people want to see the vaulted ceiling because it has exposed wood up here in the peninsula.
Yep.
And the common way to insulate them is just to hide all of that wood and put insulation in there and then put drywall over it. So when we were able to do it from the outside, that was a bit of a game changer. We hadn't done anything like that before. But during the process of researching and figuring it out, we found a vendor that creates these insulation panels. They're made in Utah, Raycor. Anyway, they shipped the panels, they made the panels, and they shipped them over here. And we shot a video, unloading the panels and installing them and all that stuff. And it was kind of a cool, kind of a old school Bob Villa type of a
Yeah.
feel,
This little
because we're
house.
we're actually
Yeah.
teaching. If you think about like the episodes, Bob Villa was very famous for many years, and it was because he taught people how to, he showed, kind of pulled back the curtain on the construction and showed people what was behind the walls, and some people found that interesting, for
Yep.
many years. So there's those videos that are zeros salesy, that are just straight, hey, this is kind of a really cool part of this project, and this is how we did it. So we have that mix, and um that mix has done well for us so far.
Are you? Cause I think you touched on it a little bit, but it's for somebody who's just starting out and maybe feeling overwhelmed. Like, well, what do I use? What do I record? What kind of content can I create? But you can almost, I mean, there's almost 24 hours or however many hours you work, 10 hours in the workday that like all of it could be useful in some capacity, right? So are you guys specific about, hey, this is happening this day, this is what we're going to record, this is how we're going to do it? Or is it just literally recording everything and then figuring out what you're going to post and use as content.
No, I think you have to be a little bit more strategic because, see, you don't want to just create content for the sake of creating it. You want to create content that people are actively searching for the most part. So if
Right.
we say, hey, 70% of our content creation is driven by long tail key phrases on Google Analytics, okay, that's how you create the your bedrock content. And
Yep.
then you've got maybe 5% that are going to be kind of goofy things around the office, like, we had a cake made with our logo, and we boosted that, and we told the story of how we got here to 18 years. But that's a very small part. Like, that can't be the norm, right? If you were to
Right.
just talk about yourself, like, that doesn't solve anybody's problem. This was just kind of one of those things, like, hey, if you've been following us and stuff, we've made it 18 years, so we kind of
Yep. Yep.
doing something right. But it isn't it's a very small, that type of content is a very small percentage of the things that we create. And then you've got the different content of progress, like, hey, this is a job we've been working on, these are the different components of it, and this is what we've been doing, etc. So that's kind of your mix, you know
Yeah, and I think I love that you guys are doing the history or the research rather, and I guess you have to if you're going to be any sort of level of successful at it. But to that point, a lot of people that I've talked to, especially through this platform, they kind of think that, or they're under the mindset that this strategy is really only beneficial in the residential sector, right? Like there's only homeowners are on Instagram or on, YouTube or whatever, searching for these things, researching these things and it's helpful. But to your point, if you're able to drill down what people are looking for, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, right? I mean, you could be building pipelines across the country, but and think maybe these people aren't on Instagram, but if they're searching for something or looking for something, I mean, there's a way to, uh, put yourself in front of them based on what they're looking for and what they're actively searching.
I would say that if you think your audience isn't on one of the social media platforms,
Yep, you're limiting yourself for sure.
that's foolish.
Yep.
So look, we ran a few years ago. We ran radio commercials. I spent maybe 20 grand running radio commercials, and we got maybe 15 leads, maybe. And I thought, man, I don't think this radio thing works. The radio station has proven audience. So the question is not that I don't have customers on that radio station. The question is that my message didn't resonate. I
Right.
didn't create a valuable exchange with anybody there. By the way, I did close one job that was $250,000,
So
and it
paid for it.
closed.
You're all right. Yeah.
But it closed 2.5 months after I stopped doing the radio commercials. So I thought it didn't work. In my mind, I thought it didn't work. So I think that people have that attitude about creating content on social media. Now, look, I mean, there's some platforms that are for kids, or there's some platforms that are for this or that. But I think if you look at Facebook, the demographics that are on there, your baby boomers are on there because they want to see their kids, their grandkids' pictures
Yep.
that are
Yep.
on there and stuff like that. So I think if you write off Facebook, or you write off putting stuff on YouTube, you're being foolish. That's just not true. The
Yeah.
question is, how can I create content? Which is the very hard question, by the way. The challenging question. The challenging question is not, is my audience on YouTube and Facebook? That's not the challenging question. The challenging question is, how do I create content that is appropriate for the platform and is of value so that I can exchange my customers' attention for the content that I provide? That's the real hard question to answer. And that's the reason that there's so few people. I mean, there's more now than before, but in the construction world, there's very few that are doing a good
Well, and it's always
job.
kind of a moving target too, right? So, I think why it can be intimidating to some people, and or why maybe some people aren't as successful at it, is because they they think it's a set it and forget it type of
Yes.
strategy, right? Where it's, oh, this is what I do. This worked when I started doing it. I'm just going to do this forever. But as fast as social media changes and any sort of media on the internet, and as fast as it moves, you've got to be on top of it almost daily to make sure that you are, ahead of the curve and still trending in some of those areas that you want to be trending in.
It's true. It's a commitment. It's a commitment in perpetuity. It
Yep.
is not a set it and forget it deal. It's one of those things that needs to be looked at very frequently every week. When we run campaigns, we look at them. Even 2 days is too soon to look at them in depth, but um, you have to be looking at your traffic, the organic traffic, because your organic traffic will swell on your website. Um, if you're doing your marketing correctly on the social media channels, your organic traffic will swell because they will come based on something that they heard. So if you're running advertisement on Spotify or Pandora or the regular radio stations, and you're running Google ads or you're running Facebook ads all at the same time, you'll see that your overall traffic organically, where there was no link, where they must have remembered you from one of the platforms and then gone back and typed in your website. Um, that swells as your marketing efforts are funded, right? So let's say you put $1,000 on Facebook, $1,000 on Pandora or Spotify, and you're spending $4,000 or $5,000 in a given month. You will see the organic traffic swell. You
Yeah.
could start for those of people that are starting from scratch. You won't have an audience. They won't have an audience yet, but what they have to do is start to create a book, a library of content, and just you got to have faith that if the content is good enough and frequent enough that the people will eventually come.
Yeah. Sooner or later they'll find it.
Yeah, and then I mean you could put some money on it. Obviously, maybe not 1,000 on each piece of content, but you could start putting $200, $300, $400 on it, and start getting some eyeballs on it. Because if you don't have any followers and you're just posting content, no one's looking at it, right? So you have to
Right.
spend a little bit of
Right.
money to get things going. It's an
Yep.
uphill battle. I mean, there's no nice way of saying that. Starting a business is not for the faint of heart. You know, I've been doing this. I'm 47 years old, and I started my first business at 22. So I've been at
Jeez.
this entrepreneurship thing for a long time, and it's not an easy thing.
Yeah.
It's full of a lot of disappointment and a lot of trial and error.
Well, I feel like you're almost at the point where you're more of or you could be more of a content creation and marketing company than a construction company, right? And what you're doing really kind of translates to any industry, right? Obviously, you're just using
Yes.
construction because that's what you're familiar with, but I mean there could be a point down the road where that's all you do, right? This is what you do, and it doesn't matter for what industry or company.
Well, I think that I think that is plausible. If I chose to do that, uh, what I think. So if you look at some of the content that's out there, and even these professional bloggers that write these blog articles for other companies, like you could hire somebody to write a blog article
Yep.
for you.
Yep.
The problem is the main thing missing is the soul of the piece, the soul of the business. How can you um how will your inner DNA be reflected in the piece of content so that it has authenticity, and then later it becomes credibility, and then eventually becomes consumption? If
Which is hard to
somebody
do from somebody
It's
from the
hard to
outside.
do it if you're
Yeah.
not in the business, and then
Yep.
you don't have the inner connection with the nooks and crannies of the business that
Yep.
comes out in the writing if you do it well, right? And that's a big thing. That's why you get it just becomes more noise. Your your content becomes noise if you sub it out. Now, look, I mean, I'm
Well,
not
it's
saying
less
that this.
authentic. There's less authenticity to it, right? And which can be
I
snipped
think
out pretty
I think
easily.
that's true. Look, I don't
Yeah.
see the CEO of Coca-Cola writing a blog article about drinking Coke. All right, I don't see it as a practical thing. But if you're a starting, let's say you're starting as a painter, right? Because that's a low barrier for entry. You're going to get in the construction business. You want to be a home painter, right? You you can talk about the thing, and video yourself at your jobs with, your customer's permission, obviously, but you can video yourself telling the story of how this room got to be this place. And look, not every room is going to be very, uh,
Captivating. Yeah.
captivating, but let's say you get a cool job where you do like a Queen Anne house, or you do
Yep.
a craftsman house in Pasadena where you're going to have probably 5 or 6 different colors outside, and the texture, the wall prep is going to be like crazy, like somebody put oil and then they put water and then they put oil based paint, and there's like a mix mash, and how are you going to deal with all of those problems, right? How are you going to deal with installing this air conditioner so here's the thing, like installing an air conditioner in itself is not, if you're an HVAC contractor, is not an amazing thing. But if you have a job where you're craning in the
Or
unit,
flying them in from the helicopter. Yeah.
yeah, something kind of cool like that. And
Yep.
AC units do get craned in. I've craned in quite a few of them. But when you create drone footage and all of that stuff, and you talk
Right.
about the logistics for getting the thing in, and tell the story of how the people haven't had AC for the last 40 years of that building, and now they're going to have it, and how cool it is, and how you made that happen for them. This tells the story of you solving the problem for somebody else. And that is relevant to other people that have the same problem, right?
Yep.
So being very specific about and being very deliberate about the content that you create can help you create compelling content. And that's kind of like where you have to get your head. At first I remember
I was going
where
to
I was
say
going.
it's a mindset, right? I mean, you
Yes.
got to be in the mindset that almost anything can be content if you want it to be, and pick and choose some of those, like you said, those cool things, or some of those things that are going to be captivating.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm writing an article right now that's going to be published probably the end of the month, and it's about remodeling houses in PV estates. I live in Redondo Beach, California, and our business is in this area called the South Bay, where the Palos Verdes Peninsula is at the base of the hill that we operate out of. Anyhow, that entire peninsula development was imagined out of nowhere. It was literally just a barren hillside with no trees. And these group of architects and engineers and landscape designers got together and used their imagination to make something out of nothing.
Yeah.
So one of the first houses, this first architectural house type of house that was designed and built, was a Spanish colonial. And the Spanish colonials up here are very specific to this area. Now we have, up and down the coast, we have Spanish mission style houses, but the Spanish colonials that are up in PV, you could tell if I showed you a picture of these different Spanish houses built in different parts of the hill, you could tell that they're very different than the Spanish colonials that were built like in Santa Barbara or even in San Diego or San Juan Capistrano. So what we're creating is, for the content that I'm creating for now that I'm researching, is I'm going to create a blog article with pictures of these houses, 50, 60 years later, and what the thought process was when they were designed. So that's kind of a cool part of history, right? Then the
Yeah.
next part is, how do you remodel them without changing the DNA, the soul that house has, right? How do you do that? How do you put in modern materials and not destroy the authenticity of that and the craftsmanship that house had when it was built, 70 years ago? So for a very small audience, I mean, I call it like cable television of construction, right? It's going to be relevant for most people. In fact, if
Right.
you don't live up in PV, it's not going to be relevant to you at all. But if you're considering moving into PV, or you own one of these houses and you want to do a major remodel, who would you rather have do that? Would you rather have somebody that's going to try and somebody that doesn't understand the dynamics of what it takes to do construction up there? And then, or would you rather have somebody that's really thought about this many hours before about how to do this with while preserving the soul of the house, right? So that when you walk in, it takes you back to a different era, but it has modern materials. Like, it has insulation. It's got a nice window that keeps all the noise out. It's got AC. A lot of the houses don't even have AC up there.
Right.
So this is an example of what I'm talking about. And it can be done for any industry. Okay. It could be done for banking. It could be done for insurance sales. It could be done for for furniture, for whatever you do. There's of every industry, there's a component that has a historical significance, that has a creative angle, and creativity that people that have a higher level of curiosity would want to know more about. And there's a story to tell. And if you could bring those things together, then you're probably going to come up with a good piece of content.
Yeah, and honestly, it doesn't even have to be historical, right? I mean, obviously, it makes it easier and it makes it more compelling on your end, but all you're doing, and I don't mean to downplay it, I mean, I think it's brilliant, but what you are doing is positioning yourself as an expert with that one specific product or micro niche of people.
Yeah.
And positioning yourself in such a way that they really don't have an option to call anybody else, right? Like you said, going back to what you said, if there's some guy who maybe even you have a recommendation from, or was referred to you because he did great work for some other house in LA, or there's you who literally wrote this article on how to specifically remodel the house that you are in right now. Which one are you going to choose, right? I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. And to your point, it can be done for anything, right? I mean, you can take any little micro niche of people or potential buyers and research and be an expert in that one and position yourself as an expert, by creating that content.
Yeah. And again, it really just goes to the exchange of value for value, right?
Right.
I may not get, this is not going to be a 3 million viewer TikTok, cat video.
Right.
It's not going to do that. And you can't have that expectation. You're going to say, hey man, if this article gets me 1 or 2 jobs a year and they happen to be $500,000 remodel jobs, then that's a win, right? I mean, the article cost me the amount of time that it took me to research and post it. And let's say that it's 40 hours. Okay. So, but you see how you have to choose wisely, right? Because if you're going to do a piece of content correctly, it's going to take some time.
Yeah.
And you just don't want to arbitrarily start to create content. You want to be very specific about it. So my target in this article is people that are architectural aficionados that want to get information about living in PV, which happens to be where I do business. Right. It is not going to be found. I mean, it may be found by somebody in Cincinnati, Ohio, but you understand, like when you create an ad, it's or broadcast, it's a broadcast, right? This is a micro piece of content that's geo targeted specifically for the area that I want to do business in, right? Yeah. So that's our strategy, how I view it, and not all of them are like that, obviously,
right.
But I'll tell you, the big winners are the ones that are very specific and very narrow, where we literally have somebody call me and say, hey, I saw your video on this and this, and dude, that was really informative. I want to talk to you about my project. Those types of approaches happen often, but they only happen on the narrow videos, right? Narrow niche videos.
Well, like I said, to that point, you're creating a level of expertise and position yourself as an expert in that one specific area or issue, to the point where somebody who has that issue or that problem or needs more information on that has no other option but to call you.
Yeah.
If you just say, hey, we do remodels really, really well, and we can remodel your house.
That's what everybody's saying.
You know what I mean? Right. Yeah.
I mean, no one's going to hire. I'm always late. I'm over budget and my job and my work sucks. Like that. No one, you know what I'm saying? Like, no,
Yeah.
So if everybody's saying, if everybody's saying, yeah, we do good work and we do good quality work and we'll call you back, I mean, that's what everybody's saying.
Right.
That's cool.
Right.
That's cool.
Right.
And there's no reason to believe that they wouldn't call you back or do good work. The question is, that is not a that's not a good proposal for taking, 10 minutes of your time.
No, those are
your
table
attention.
stakes, right?
Yeah.
Those are those are minimum requirements to enter the field, right? I say it all the time, right? I mean, when I'm talking to a prospect and they say, "Oh, I love my broker," they call me back and they give me certificates when I ask. So, yeah, but that's their job, right? I mean, that's the minimum table stakes to even be in this industry. If you're not, I would assume you'd be calling me sooner or seeking me
Sure.
out beforehand, right? So
No,
yeah,
100%.
no, it's the same thing. I mean, like you said, nobody's gonna put on their ad that they do terrible work and they never call you back and run up the budget on you for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I had a friend of mine who worked in insurance. He worked at one of the Geico offices, and I told him, yeah, I'm a student of business first. I love talking about business and business topics. And he was complaining about how he wasn't making any money. That after the stimulus checks went through, a bunch of people bought cars, and then they had to get insurance. So there was a big jump in
Yeah.
at the beginning of the recession, or I'm sorry, at the COVID lockdowns. So beginning of 2020, mid 2020. Anyhow, after that slowed down a year later, he was like, "Man, I'm not making any money. I got no calls coming in, and things are slow." And I says, "Well, why don't you call? Why don't you call? Because I deal with this all the time. Why don't you call all of the customers that you have that have auto only? Have them filter out the people that only have auto, and call them and ask them if they have, or actually call people that have homeowners policies, and ask them if they would like to add the coverage for the foundation, because 99% of policies, fire insurance policies, are written in a way that they don't cover the foundation, mostly because
Right.
people don't know they should. Well,
Right.
after the fire that we had maybe 6-7 years ago up north, um, the biggest problem was not the insurance companies paying out the fire damage on the structure. It was that the building department would not allow them to build on the damaged foundations from the fire.
Yep.
Everybody thought they were covered, but they weren't covered, and the damage
Right.
was, run a new foundation was $150,000. So I said, why don't you create a little a postcard and mail it out, and then also call them and spend the next few weeks during your downtime calling people and giving them a heads up that you know they're underinsured.
Yep.
And I mean, that's a helpful thing, right?
Yep.
You're not just interrupting somebody. Or you create content about it and send them an email of a video that you shot on your desk talking about this. And on the video, it could say on the email, "Hey, if you want to talk more, you want to check your policy situation, give me a call, or send me an email. We'll book a call." Something like that, right? If
Right.
you have
Right.
4,000 customers and 99% of them are underinsured, you just did them a solid,
Right.
right?
Yep.
So things like that, I think in every industry, there's you basically look at the negative things that have happened to people and try and help the other people avoid that, and that becomes a point of value, right? You're creating content that's valuable, and you're not just saying, "Hey, buy this for me, buy this for me." I'm just saying, "Hey, look, you should probably be aware of this." If you have if you have a car insurance, you're selling car insurance, most people are underinsured. If you look at especially now with inflation, like the cost to repair a car,
Yep.
it's a lot
Yep.
more. If you're running around
Yep.
with 100 grand coverage, you're underinsured if you have a
Yep.
house, right?
Yep.
When you first wrote your policy, your first, let's say you got your car insurance 4 years ago, you've been 4 or 5 years with the same company, and you've been in your house, let's say 7 years, 10 years, your equity over the last 3 years has gone up. So you may be, if you have a $300,000 policy and you've got $800,000 in equity, you're underinsured.
Yep.
It's very likely if you get into a bad car accident, you could kill somebody, right? Or somebody could be killed. And if your policies don't match your equity, you're underinsured. But most people don't know that.
Right.
So
Right.
there's a scenario where the provider can be a good source of solving the problem for the customer in every industry. The question is, do you want to dedicate the time that it takes to create that content?
Yep. And figure out those problems
Yeah.
and like you said, create the compelling content around it for sure. So it sounds like obviously you guys, I mean, I think obviously what you guys are doing is working and you guys are growing, but what does the future look like for you guys? I mean, I have to imagine that there's got to be uh, a need or a want to grow outside of maybe your area geographically or doing different types of, into a different area vertically or a different vertical rather of construction, or what does the future look like for you guys?
We've expanded into Orange County. Last year we opened up a satellite branch out in Newport Beach,
Oh, nice.
and we've gotten some work down there, which is really cool. Um,
Right around the
we were
corner.
always looking to expand, but mostly for the purpose of becoming more stable. So my thinking is that if we can bring on more talented individuals, because you can't grow by yourself. For
Right.
the longest time, I thought, hey man, if I keep this my overhead low and my people low, I'll be fine. I'll be able to be profitable and I'll be fine. The problem is that you can't do everything, and it isn't just that. It isn't about you can't do anything. That's obvious, I think. But the bigger problem is that when you hire good people that are experts in their space, a good project manager, a good designer, they're they're able to keep the level of customer service up, um, rather than me being fragmented, in 17 different customers, 17 different jobs. So if you're adding more people to your company and they're taking good care of the customer and they understand what they're doing, they're not causing a drag on the business, they're actually helping the business gain momentum. um that helps you be more stable, right? If you have more jobs, more design jobs in the pipeline, so you've got a certain amount of jobs that you're in production, and then you've got a certain amount of jobs that are in the pipeline. That combination of being able to get through the existing work and being able to add future work, that's a virtuous cycle that requires more people, more manpower,
Yep.
or woman power too. In this case, in my case, because I have Wendy is my interior designer and Casey's the project manager, but um, it requires more people to keep that virtuous cycle going. And so the next hire for me would probably be a salesperson, an additional salesperson, and then Brian and I will continue to focus on bringing the level and the quantity of content up, so that, and as we grow in revenue, then we can spend more money on promoting that content that we created. So
Yep.
that's kind of our game plan. I don't know how bad this recession is going to be. I'm honestly, I don't even, maybe it sounds a little bit naive. I thought 2-3 months ago we were going to have a recession for sure, and now I'm not so sure about it because even though interest rates are climbing and the velocity of houses being sold is maybe slowing, the houses, the neighborhoods that we work in, the houses are old. They're built in the 50s. And as the boomers are dying off and new people are buying the house, it the electrical's no good. The sewer's no good. It's got lead paint. It's got, old aluminum windows. It's got a ton of problems. So, you're going to spend a mil six on a house and then not do anything else.
Yeah.
I don't
Doubtful.
know.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, some people I think will. I mean, some of the younger couples, they're going to have to, kind of put up with it. But some of the people that are more affluent, they'll have the money to do both, to buy a 1.6 or $2 million house and then put another 400,000 into it. So the problem is, how severe is the competition going to be? How are my competitors going to bring the pricing down through desperation? How
Yeah.
bad will that be?
Yep.
I don't know. Like I said, I don't know that the demand will get to the level that it'll worry me. It'll be more of the desperation from the competitors and what they do to the pricing. So I mean, it doesn't matter if they drop the price below their production costs, they'll go out of business.
I was
But
going to
it'll
say,
just
yeah,
mean that
yeah,
we'll probably have 12 to 14 months, maybe 18 months where it's going to be really rough.
a little
Where
tight. Yeah,
we're gonna be saying no to a lot of jobs and wait for those people to go under, and then we'll be able to get the pricing that we need in order to be profitable. So that is the dynamic as I see it.
yeah. Well, and having that backlog allows you to say no, right? Have it being
Well,
successful
that's the key, right? Is to
yeah,
be
building that
jam packed
pipeline.
with large jobs that take 6 to 8 months to do, and that way you could say no to when the things get real bad. You can say no to all the bad jobs that are not going to be profitable.
Yep.
And you don't have to engage in the insanity.
Yeah. The insanity. I love that.
I mean, it's insane to
No,
take on
it
business so you're
is.
going to lose money. It's insane to repair somebody's house for free and they get to have all of the benefit, obviously, of renting it out and living in it. You just
Yeah.
did all the work for free and then went away.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's insane, and it's done every day in this industry.
Unfortunately, yeah. Yes, sir. Well, Alex, this has been amazing. I know we talked a lot on the content piece, but I think that's what you guys are doing awesome, and I think that's more helpful than anything to a lot of people listening. For sure, just being able to understand how that piece works and what it looks like to take on something like that.
Well, if you want to talk a little bit about like if you want to give advice, asking for advice for a young contractor, somebody starting, I would say that you have to, maybe you don't have enough money to do a tremendous amount of marketing, and you'll have to do a lot of it yourself and work late in the evening to edit it and post it and stuff like that. And maybe you'll find some people online that you could sub that out to. But what I would say that the more important part to that is going to be able to run your business um, in a profitable manner, which means that you have to educate yourself about what are the percentages of profit that you have to have. um, what are the types of jobs that are a good match for the skill sets that you have. If you take on jobs that you're not familiar with, you're very likely to lose money on those jobs, unless you can sub it out to somebody that does have a lot of experience in that. I Over the years, because I've been so um, cautious about getting sued or having warranty claim issues, I've really stayed away from jobs that I didn't know how to do. Okay, and yeah, so I've probably said no to millions of dollars worth of work, but I think that if you take on a job that you have a loss on, you'll probably need 3 profitable jobs to make up the loss.
Yeah.
So if you can just avoid the loss, you're going to be ahead of the game. So stick to things that you are aware that you're familiar with, that you know you can do, and you know what the cost to get it done. If you so that's tip number 1. Tip number 2, on any part of the project that's more than $300, you should have a written quote or written estimate from your vendor, so that when you tally up all the components of that particular project, you'll know exactly what it's going to cost you. If you don't know what it's going to cost you, you don't know what to charge. And then on top of that, you have to charge um, obviously your profit for you managing it, and then your operating expenses. So you take into account your insurance, your gasoline, the portion of your house that you use to run your business out of, or obviously if you have an office, all of those expenses. But you really have to spend some time with a bookkeeper, an accountant, to help you understand what are your monthly operating expenses, and then what are the expenses directly related to getting that job built, and make sure that you add into your estimate to the customer, you add all of those costs in there and add a profit amount on top of that, so that you have something to show for your hard work at the end of the month,
Yeah.
or at the end of the
Yep.
quarter. And I think that I don't think I'm exaggerating, but I think that 70% of contractors don't know their cost.
Oh, I would agree.
Maybe as high as 80.
Yeah. Yeah.
which is
I definitely think there's not enough time built into bidding a job properly. And I mean it shows in change orders and that frustration and obviously unprofitable jobs. But if done correctly and done with diligence, um, barring any unforeseen issues, obviously, or things out of your control, there's really no need for large change orders and or unprofitability in a job.
well, so here's the thing. How do you spend the correct amount of time on establishing what the cost is going to be for a project if you're doing free estimates every day?
Right.
You'll never be able to do that.
And or you don't know what your true costs are.
Well, I had a call today. Lady said, "Hey, I need this, and this. I got some balconies. I got some termite damage on my thing, and we may be doing this large external job where we're gonna have to do stucco and siding, etc." I says, "Well, it's $450 for me to come out. Love to help you with it." And she's like, "Well, what do we get for that?" And I says, "Well, I'll walk the job with whomever is going to be responsible for spearheading the job. I'll give you advice on site while we're talking, and then if you feel like you want to work with us, I'll give you a detailed quote on the job." So you're only going to get two responses. You're going to be, "Yes, let's do it. When can you be available?" Or, "No, I'll have to think about it. Or I'll have to ask somebody. Or I'll have to this, or I'll have to that." And more people now are saying, "Yes, let's book it," because they can't get a contractor to come out there for free.
Right.
Because most people don't even think about charging them to come out. So they'll just say, "Hey, I'm too busy. I can't go look at your job." So I think that'll change over the next few months. I think there's still going to be more people available. But here's the thing. If you're paying me for it, I'm obligated to provide you with it, right?
Right.
I'm not going to just show up and, like, if I don't want the job, just disappear. I'm obligated to it because you paid me to do it. So that's a very big difference. And if you do the job, if you book us, we're happy, obviously. But if you didn't book us, you paid me for my time. So if I did 3 a day, that's $1,200. I could make sense of that, right?
Right.
I could make sense of driving around for 10 hours for $1,200. I can't make sense of driving around for 10 hours for no money.
Right.
Right.
In the hopes that somebody says yes.
In the hopes
after
that
a
somebody
bidding war.
says, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're a new contractor and you have something of value to offer somebody, then by all means charge for your time.
Yep.
And you'll see that people won't waste your time because
Right.
it doesn't cost them anything to just say, "I'm taking bids right now." I get people tell me that all the time. "I'm getting bids right now." I'm like, "Okay, what do you want me to help you with?" "Well, I want you to come down here and give me a bid." I'm like, "Absolutely, no problem. It'll be $450. They're like, "What?" Well, some of them are more. Some of them are like $3,000-$4,000.
Right.
The
Right.
project takes a long time. And she asked me, like,
Well, it can be a scary position because as especially as a newer contractor, right? Like saying no to that many people or having that many people say no to you. But like to your point, the ones that say yes are going to be a lot higher quality and a lot higher close ratio, probably.
right. But here's the thing. So this is the chicken or the egg, right? Question. If you have less money and less resources, do you want to spend the whole day driving around incurring expenses?
Right.
Because there is an expense.
Yeah.
So that's the question. The less money you have, the higher the risk of doing that, because you're
Right.
not guaranteed anything. And then, well, people would say, "Well, then how else am I going to get customers?" Well, then there's your problem. You don't have a reputation. You don't have anything other than, see, you got to have, as a contractor, as a business owner, you got to have something else to be judged by than a quote.
Right.
If you're depending on somebody determining whether to hire you or not because of 2 pieces of paper that you gave them, you're doing it wrong. Right? You're doing it wrong.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
They have to want to do business with you because of something that you are offering them other
Yeah.
than the quote.
The
See,
quote is just justification to do the work, right? I mean,
well, no, the quote is a number, and in
yeah,
a world where 100% of all construction costs are not the original amount, then they based it on a wrong premise. No job of any kind, of any significant amount, cost what the original projections were. None.
right,
But if
right,
they hired you based on that, then they're only going to be disappointed, right? Because you don't have any control over the fact that no one repaired that leaky shower pan that had been leaking for 15 years, and you open it up and there's another $8,000 worth of work. That
yep,
was not up to you. You had no
right,
control over that. You had no way of knowing that that was the case, right? So if they hired you because you were the cheapest and then you hit them with a change order for 7 grand, all you're going to get is somebody who's pissed off for the next 3 weeks. You understand?
yep.
So
No, I
so
love that.
they have to hire you for something other than the quote. And if you're creating your business based on being hired by quotes, by running around town all day, you're going to find out that you're going to be out of money, out of patience, and extremely frustrated pretty quick.
I love that. I love what you said too about them. That's the only if that's the only thing they have to judge on you or judge you on, then they're going to be disappointed, which is the absolute truth, right? I mean, if you've given them no other reason to hire you other than the number on the piece of paper, then that's all they have to judge you on. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
And if your
And I
selling
think
point is
that's a
that I'll do
mindset
it,
that's lost on a lot of people.
if your selling point is that I'll do it cheaper than anybody else, you're only going to attract the worst customers.
Yeah,
The ones that don't want to pay for the other stuff that's busted on their house or that they want you to incur that cost.
yeah.
I had a customer once, we opened up the wall and there was a pipe that was right in the way. And he's like, that's your problem. That's what he told me. He says, sir, without due respect, this is your house, your
Right.
pipe, and your problem. And if you would like us to move it, it's going to be $900, or you're very welcome to hire your own plumber. Call me back when they move the pipe, and that's it. But if you don't establish the ground rules for how to be treated, you're gonna get used like the tools that you're in your truck. You're just
Yep.
gonna get used like a drill. You're
Yep.
gonna get, they're gonna use you like a tool. So remember the name of the game is solving other people's problems for a profit. That's really the functional definition of capitalism, right?
Yep.
But you can't forget about the profit part. You have to
Right.
be able to be profitable. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you're not going to be playing in the game for very long because the profits will let you participate in the game tomorrow and the next day and the next day, right?
Yep.
So those are mandatory things that have to happen. And if you don't have an accountant as a contractor and you're not working with a bookkeeper and accountant, you don't understand what is going on financially with your business. I remember at the end of the year tallying up all this free work that we did. I remember one year was like $60,000-$70,000. And that was a year that we only sold $400,000 worth of business. Can you imagine? I gave away 25%
20%. Yeah.
of my work. And by the way, I didn't make any money that year. No profit.
Shocker.
That was my
right?
profit. All my profit
Yeah.
was in the change orders that I did for free.
Yeah.
Because the people complained about the money or this or that or whatever other excuse that I made for not charging for the work that we should have charged for.
Well, but to your point, if you don't have somebody who's, an expert in looking at that kind of stuff, an accountant on your side or helping you out, those numbers are hard to see. And I bet if you didn't have somebody, and maybe you didn't, I don't know if you did or not, or if you researched that yourself, but if you didn't actually do the work or have somebody do the work to notice it was $60,000 or $70,000 in work, I bet you probably would have just shrugged it off as, oh, we did a little bit, but that's maybe not the reason. We just need to find a reason, a way to be more profitable. But when those numbers are put in front of your face, you've got no reason to ignore them. You can't ignore them, and you have to find a way to make them work.
Well, well, yes. So what I would say is you got to do it every month, right?
Yeah.
So that you don't wait until the end of the quarter or the end of the year to know that you got to course correct, right? Like if a particular project looks like it's going over, you got to understand how much. And look, you don't always have to charge every nickel and dime the customer for every little thing, but you don't know how much. Um, you can't make an intelligent decision on what to charge them for and what you can slide under a contingency budget unless you understand your working totals, right? What is my real time run how am I, how am I doing on this job?
Yeah.
Am I on budget? Am I over budget? Am I under budget? What's the scenario? Are the vendors being paid on time on this project? What's my financial status on this project? And if you don't know that, you're going to be in trouble. You just can't make good decisions without that information. And you don't have to spend a fortune on it. You just have to one of the good tips that I could give people is you have a list on an Excel sheet with all of the tasks that are going to be done, who the vendor is and what they're charging. That is your working construction budget. You can work in a 2 to 5% contingency of your cost as your contingency. So let's say on a $100,000 job, I'll have a realistically, I'll probably have a 5% contingency on there. So 5 grand are going to be for things that I didn't account for. Okay. And the reason that I do that is so that I can mitigate the change orders, right? Some of the stuff I have to do change orders because there's no way of knowing. Some of the things could have been a lot more complicated than I thought initially, and I'll take it out of the contingency budget. So let's say I got $100,000 budget and I got 3 months, right? I'm splitting. I could look at my running total based on the vendors because the vendors. This is where you would use some of your contingency. Let's say one of your vendors, this has happened to me, my plumber wasn't available for this job. Like we bid it 3 months ago and he's just not available. So the other backup plumber was $1,500 more expensive. That comes out of the contingency. I can't charge the customer just because that's my problem internally, right?
Right.
So that's where your contingency comes in. So managing these dynamic things in the project really just require time. You can't do it if you're in there doing the work, by the way.
Right.
You can't
Right.
project manage and hammer and swing a hammer. You got to make a decision on which one you want to do. Otherwise you'll just be kind of what I call an active employee. You're not going to be a real business owner. You're not going to be
Right.
when you think about like what is your goal for the business? The goal for the business is for me to get to the point, for this business to get to the point where it operates with minimal amount of me being
Right.
there. So
Right.
if I get, God forbid, I have a health scare, I have cancer, I've got this, I've got that, the business is still making money, right? My health insurance is being paid for, my family's expenses are being paid for, right? Because I have this machine that can produce work, right? That can produce revenue and can produce money. But you can't do that if you are the cog in the machine. Can't. So when you ask me what am I working up to, I'm working up to that, to expanding to the point where I make strategic decisions for the quarter that'll impact our revenue. But I definitely don't need to go to every job every week, right? That's my goal is to get to that point where the project managers manage the projects, the designers do the designing, accounting collects the money and does the billing and payroll, and all of those things start to happen. And you can't do that if you're, a team of 2-3 people. You just can't do it.
Yep.
You need revenue and you need people to be able to do it. By the way, your employees, as you bring on employees, if they're the right ones, they'll bring you business too. They'll
Yep.
talk to the neighbor, they'll talk to
Yep.
the other people
Yep.
that they know, and you'll start getting a bump. If you bring in the right employees, you could get a 10 to 15, maybe even a 20% bump within the first 8 months. And then after that, you should probably be looking for like maybe a doubling of the business volume. Especially if you're starting off small. If you're starting off, $100,000 in revenue, you could easily get to 500,000. Breaking the million is the first hard part.
Right. Right.
Because remember, the jobs are going to be much bigger, so people have to trust you to be able to do them, right? To be considered for the projects, right? But think about it: if the jobs now are 150 to 200,000, let's say that the average job now is 200,000. That's only 5 jobs, and you're at a million. So we always averaged about 21 jobs a year when they were much smaller. I haven't done the math yet for this year so far, but It won't be too different from that. Maybe it'll be 30 or 28 or something like that. But having an understanding of your financial position is super, super important.
Yeah, no, it's and like you said, I think there's a very high percentage of people in this industry that and owners in this industry that maybe don't understand that. And to your point, it's probably because they're in the business too often and with, you know, too high a frequency to be able to have the time to understand that.
And it's hard, man. It's hard
Yep.
to you're playing, you have so many different hats. The good part is that, you know, when you start having some success and you gain some momentum and you start attracting good people, you understand your business because you work the jobs that you've hired somebody to do kind of at each part of your growth. You understand what needs to happen in your business for it to continue to grow, right? You can understand if someone's doing a good job or not, right? So I had somebody working for me and the customers were always complaining about this or that or the other. Obviously, the person that was managing the projects wasn't doing. When you get complaining, for every complaint that you get from a customer, you got to assume that 15 or 20 people are unhappy that never came to you
Right. Right.
because of mostly people. Look, there's some people that are like professional complainers, but for the most part, people don't like conflict, right? So they'll just walk away. Like, think about how many times you've gone to a restaurant and you thought the food was mediocre. People even ask me, "How was everything?" You say, "It's okay. It was fine. It was good," and it wasn't. You just show that you didn't like it by not coming back, right?
Right.
But when the one person complains about something at the restaurant, you got to assume that 15 or 20 suffered the same scenario and
Same
didn't complain.
experience. Yeah.
They just
Yeah.
won't come back,
Yeah.
right? And if you understand that, if you're able to recognize this reality, then you really are gonna put time into dealing with avoiding complaints and making sure people are happy, contacting
Yep.
them often, kind of checking in, hey, how's everything going with your project? You're all good, you need help, etc. So these are very kind of elementary business concepts that if you don't get it right, if you're a big business and you don't do these things, you'll be small business or out of business pretty fast because they're just one of those business principles. You can't, in a world where you have a free competitive environment and people can move freely from one vendor to the other, they will move. They just move. So you must always remember that you're there to solve a problem at a profit.
Yep.
And that means that you have to be available and respond to the needs of your customer. So
Well, Alex, again, this has been amazing. I'm gonna let you run, but I think before we let you go, I want to give you an opportunity to let everybody know where they can find you, see your stuff, get a hold of you, whatever it is.
s-
Just because I think it's valuable to people out there in this industry for sure.
cool. BayCitiesConstruction.com is our website. We're on Facebook. You just look us up on Bay Cities Construction. Also, we have a pretty good YouTube channel, Bay Cities Construction or Bay City Builds, YouTube /Bay City Builds. And most of our content on our blog and stuff is on BayCitiesConstruction.com. And love to chat with anybody that is considering doing a remodel or even one of our fellow competitors listening somewhere else in the country that is starting off in construction and wants to have a little chat about getting some momentum in their business. Always happy to talk to somebody about that too.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Alex, man. It's been awesome. And I'm glad we did this follow up and hopefully in a couple of years, if we're both around, we'll do it again and see where everything has gone since then. But I think it's been awesome, and I appreciate all you guys are doing for the industry. Kind of creating that, getting rid of that stigma of that blue collar work and making it fun and being profitable in it as well. So I appreciate it, Alex. It's been awesome.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. Stay safe out there, and let's keep in touch. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you had a good time, be sure to hit that subscribe button to get all the latest episodes. And if you had a really good time, leave a review to let us know what you thought. Until then, go gather some crazy stories on your job sites, and we'll see you next time on So, You Want to Be a Contractor.